No doubt. Well, brother, let's kick it off with our first interview. Zach Goodall, Sports Illustrated, All Gators. This is a good one.
The man with the golden hair.
All right, we're pleased to once again be joined by Zach Goodall. You know him from All Gators, Sports Illustrated, covering them Florida Gators. And I got to say, Zach, I really appreciated our chat down at SEC Media Days, and I love the fact that on All Gators, your profile pic comes from our interview.
That's right. That's right. It's also turned into a meme in Gators Twitter. Not that picture, but you told me during that interview that you thought Florida could or maybe even would finish second in the East. And I didn't believe it. I gave you a look. I gave the camera a look, and that has turned into a meme on Twitter. And also, I mean, if week one is any indication, I think your prediction's already a lot closer than mine was.
Yeah, all right. So you're already coming around to the good side. I like to hear that. So before we get to that, I got to ask you real quick, how many cups of coffee do you need to get through to watch a Billy Napier press conference?
I mean, I depend on coffee as is. I developed the addiction when I was in like middle school, so
Wow.
I'm off to a poor start. I don't want to throw them under the bus or anything, but Florida, they've got that new facility, a new place for us to do press conferences, and I've told everyone this in that room, as well as on game days on the media lounge area. The single best thing Billy Napier has done has put out K-Cup machines for us to use. They've got it in the press conference room. I usually take one or two in the 30 minutes that we're in there, if
Yeah.
that speaks to it.
So I wanted to get your takeaways from the Utah game in all seriousness. I mean, Anthony Richardson, my God, he is the talk of college football, and for good reason. I mean, all you got to do is watch that 2-point conversion. I don't think I've ever seen a player make an individual play quite like that. What was your main takeaways from the upset of Utah?
Yeah, it was absurd. And I think that play in particular, I think as a whole, we all kind of knew just how lethal Richardson could be on the ground. I mean, a player of his size, last year in the home opener or season opener, he was clocked at 21 miles an hour rushing, either that or week two, one way or another. So going up against a Pac-12 team, we kind of expected him to be able to use his legs quite a bit. I truthfully was really impressed by his passing. It's not a stat line that's going to blow you away, but it was efficient. 17 to 24. No, I think he threw one near pick, and that was the only bad throw he made of the night. It was, he was pretty accurate. He showed off a lot of zip. The concepts I thought were kind of limited, but it was probably a good thing. You want to build this offense slowly with his comfort level, and the receivers, from what they were able to run, were able to accomplish exactly what the concepts were. And that was, I think, one of the biggest non-Anthony Richardson, things to assess coming into this season is how the receivers would operate in this offense. And it all really seemed to click. I mean, they've got a lot more that they need to do, but when you've got a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, as long as he's got that accuracy and that poise, he's so dangerous that his natural skill set is going to elevate the team. And it certainly did in week one.
And how impressed were you with this offensive line? Because that's been a sore spot for quite a while there in Gainesville. I know it's only one game, so we can't go overboard, but man, they look like a strength of the team potentially.
Yeah, I know we'll dive into Kentucky in a little bit here, but I think that this is a massive test, right here in week two for that unit. And they did look really good in week one. The running game, especially with three different backs and Richardson, and two of them being new backs in this backfield in Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson, things really did seem to click. They were in unison. You could definitely tell the addition of Osiris Torrance from Louisiana helped the run game and the pass game. I mean, he was very clearly just a step ahead, I think, of everyone else. And that too elevated the line, and across the unit, there is a lot of experience. So there's hope that this will be one of their better units throughout the year. They're definitely off to a great start. But again, Kentucky, especially with this news about Jordan Wright that just came out before we started, this is going to set the bar, in my opinion, at least, as to how good this offensive line could truly be.
Now, you mentioned Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, some highlight plays from them in the opener, but also they each fumbled. Etienne jumped right back on his fumble. But what's the level of concern that they can hold on to the football? Because, if you lose the turnover battle against Kentucky, you're probably going to lose the football game.
Sure thing. And I think that that's why they're really confident in their run game, even with those guys aside, because their starter is someone I didn't even mention in Naquan Wright. and he didn't have the most productive night. He was, I think, 10 for 39, so right around 4 yards per carry. But he's a guy that's proven in this backfield, good pass catcher, good pass blocker as well. So they know they can depend on him to go out there and not commit mistakes. And you got to think, Montreal Johnson coming from the Sun Belt, ETN earning significant snaps in his true freshman game, that ideally these things will be fixed. They'll get more comfortable as things go along, but that's the beauty of this offense. If ETN and Johnson are going to fumble the ball, you can have Wright and Richardson step right in and make impact plays.
Now, how big of a challenge is it for Florida this week, Zach, to not get caught up in the hype? Another sellout. I mean, they're the toast of college football. Everyone's telling them how great they are. I'm sure that's not the message in the building, but everyone outside of it. How difficult is it to kind of block out that noise?
I'm sure it's difficult, but at the same time, I think that's been a massive point of emphasis for Billy Napier. He said it on the teleconference yesterday that the ranking just doesn't matter. I mean, you can tell that that's his Nick Saban influence and the whole rat poison aspect of it. But I think the players have bought in. From the guys we've talked to this week, they've not really provided any bulletin board material, not getting ahead of themselves. Tyreek Sapp is a redshirt freshman, played in his first game of the season this past week against Utah. And the very first thing he said was, we can't get complacent. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. So at least when it comes to, stepping in front of the mic and talking to the media, they're saying the right things, but that's going to be a huge test. We know, as we were talking about in July, that this is going to be an emotional game. It's going to be one of the bigger priorities, I think, for Florida this season is to win this game. They've got to be all in. They can't afford any distractions in order to, they don't want to slip to Utah for the third time in 5 years after that streak that they had for however many it was before that.
Now, do you think Florida needs Anthony Richardson to have another heroic type performance to win this game against Kentucky?
I think that's going to be the case a lot this season because the roster still definitely isn't in Florida Gators shape as we know it. There's still a lot of development. We've seen some intriguing things, but like the run defense, they're fortunate that Kentucky is without 3 running backs this week because they allowed 180, ish yards in the second half to Utah. That's the reason that was still a game that late into the game. They're going to need an elevating performance, I would say, from Richardson. However, because Kentucky typically has a very sound run defense, they've got a really great looking front seven with several all SEC players. I want to see Richardson take his passing game to the next level. This is a relatively inexperienced Wildcat secondary. We've started to see some, glimpses of hope from this passing offense. Ricky Pearsall, I mean, the addition at wide receiver, they've been all about what he can bring to this offense, and we saw it start to click last week. I think we're going to want to put a focus on the passing game executing better this time around compared to what it was last year against Kentucky. I think ultimately the lack of trust in Emory Jones and the lack of a passing game last year is why they lost the game.
And how does the Florida defense, particularly the secondary, do they match up against Will Levis? And he's got some young receivers, but they looked pretty good in the opener. And they've got the transfer Tavion Robinson from Virginia Tech, who was incredible against, I know it was Miami of Ohio, but he looked great. Do you anticipate Will Levis having a big game against Florida?
So that's my thing. Is I'm personally not the biggest Levis fan. I think he's a very good college quarterback, and I love the addition of Robinson. I think he was their leading receiver already last week in week 1 in his first game, and he put up some big numbers. But I look back to last year at home, especially against the worst Florida Gators defense I think anyone's seen in a long time. And Levis went 7 of 17 with like 80 something passing yards. I obviously expect him to improve. He's gotten a lot more comfortable in that offense since the last time these teams played. But I think Florida's got the talent on their passing defense, especially to limit him, especially if his go-to target is someone he's only played 1 game with at this point. They love their cornerback room with Jason Marshall leading the way, and I think he's going to man up on Robinson quite a bit. The pass rush needs to get home. That was an issue for Kentucky last week. They allowed 4 sacks, I believe, but Florida wasn't able to get any on Cameron Rising. So that's going to be a huge test. I think in the secondary, they're comfortable enough to where they could contest with Levis quite a bit, but the pass rush is going to have to get home.
So is it safe to say, Zach, that, football is not this simple, but we kind of make it out to be where it's Anthony Richardson versus Will Levis. And I'm not saying it's going to be a shootout, but it may come down to which quarterback can make the most plays in this game. I'm kind of leaning towards thinking that you think Anthony Richardson will be the guy that comes out on top if that's the way the game plays out. Is that accurate?
I'm at the point now where I am pretty comfortably leaning with Florida, and I'm not sure necessarily if that's going to require Anthony to be a hero necessarily. But I do think, again, it is going to require him elevating the offense a bit, and certainly as a passer. And with that in mind, again, with Kentucky's running back situation, it's almost forced to be that Richardson and Levis matchup, which should certainly be exciting. It's another sellout crowd, and we saw how that affected Utah earlier in the game this past week. Will that get to Levis? I've not really seen him in that environment myself to where he's got 90,000 plus, screaming down on him. And can he handle that with lack of weapons, in a vacuum? I don't think he's really got that much around him that's proven himself in the passing game aside from Robinson. So I do think ultimately it will come down to a competition between those two. And at this point, I feel more comfortable with Richardson coming out on top.
So what is the path in your mind for Florida to get the win over Kentucky at home this weekend?
Start strong, especially in the passing game. Get Pearsall a little bit more involved. I think that they stretched the seam with him pretty well this past week. But again, I think the offense was a little limited, maybe manufacture him some touches. And if you can get off to that early lead, then you go to your ground and pound, as we saw a lot throughout Utah, and try and control it from that point on.
How big does this game loom over the Florida season? Because if you fall down to 0-1 in SEC play, your next SEC game, I know there's another one we've talked about on the road at Tennessee. We'll find out a lot more of how good Tennessee really is this weekend against Pitt. But, if you lose this, there's I'd say a decent chance that Florida's 0-2 in conference play right out the gate. So this one, how big is it for the season?
Yeah, I think it would humble the fan base quite a bit because rightfully so, everyone is pumped. Like Napier said the other day, everyone's ready to crown the Gators. He's not ready to. He sees a lot of room for improvement despite a historic jump in the rankings. And I certainly think Tennessee is going to be a tough game. I am not confident in saying Florida will win that game quite yet. Granted, definitely want to see more from Tennessee, but it was a team I was high on coming into the season. Obviously, again, a loss would humble the fan base, maybe bring them a little bit more back into reality. But if they win this game, then I suddenly start to feel a lot better about going in. And obviously it's a totally different type of offense, but being able to hang with a team like Tennessee, feeling a lot more confident in conference play. And if they beat Kentucky and they beat Tennessee, based on what we've seen out of LSU, there's a chance they go into the Georgia game undefeated at that point. Ooh. I don't think that's necessarily likely. I definitely didn't think it was likely before the season, but a loss would definitely change everything. Because if they can win this and then win the Tennessee game, suddenly they're going to be viewed as the hottest team in America, probably, all things considered.
All right, Zach, moment of truth. Who you got in the ball game, Kentucky or Florida?
I've got Florida. I could see Kentucky covering. I'm not necessarily confident in a score prediction yet, but I think it'll be close to Kentucky covering.
All right, Zach, I really appreciate your time and all this outstanding information. Can you tell the audience before you go, where's the best place to find all your work?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Zach_Goodall, as well as all my written work over at allgators.com.
And he's all over that page with the photo from SEC Media Days.
That's right. That is the best picture I've gotten on the job in a while.
All right, brother. So, hey, how great was that? And not only, I appreciate the fact that we gave him his profile pic down there at SEC Media Days. And this is the first time I'm aware of, Shane, that we were able to make someone a meme based on coming on our show.
That's right, man. I love it. We creating memes, building relationships. We do it all here at that SEC podcast. Hell, we got cited for a paper today. I don't even know what that's about. I'm sure it's probably a court document we're going to go to. So.
Yeah, that actually happened. And please, no one, please don't cite anything we say here in any kind of academic or legal setting because it will not hold up. Trust me.
No, it will not.
All right, buddy. So hey, we got